So excited, Rob's in the hot seat today.
Uh-oh.
Are you excited, Rob, to get to know everybody a little bit better or to allow everyone else to get to know you better?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing moving forward here. So
Awesome.
speaking to
We're here to
people,
we're here to do a job, right? This is great practice.
right?
We share our stories with people. Um, it's been an interesting couple of weeks for me. Um I did a therapeutic psychedelic mushroom journey, which I have not done since I was like healed from depression and anxiety. And one of my intentions, now, please don't be fooled with like the uh what's the word? Commercialized version of psychedelics. I think they've been demonized a lot. But when used therapeutically, intentionally, I very much believe in their power based on my own experience. And this isn't like a promotion, like go out there and, buy some shrooms off the street or whatever. It's very important that you know where it's coming from and that you trust the people that you're working with. That's why I always recommend therapeutic settings if you do it at all. Um, Tough experience, but my intentions were to get back in touch with, mm, yeah, who I really was. Like, is it kind of felt like, okay, I'm doing the CRN thing. I'm sharing my story, right? Like what Rob is going to do today. And that's helping people. But why doesn't it feel like, why don't I feel better about it? Like, what's in the way? And what psychedelics do um, is they kind of force the ego down. Like, everything that's not you is just gone. And then you're just kind of like, faced with the reality of the world and you kind of see how it's all of your own creation. It's almost impossible to describe. So if it sounds like I'm butchering it, probably am. But I set aside 4 hours of time on a Friday a couple weeks ago. I brought in a facilitator who's very experienced, and I just had created the space to go on this journey. And it was a journey. It was a journey. And I came back and I said, this work that we're doing, all of us here in Conscious Rebels, um, to help people shed the shackles of religion and to help people shed the shackles of all control systems that are keeping them from being who they really are is so important. And it's like all the self-doubt kind of melted away because I saw myself in a different way. It's about shifting your perception of yourself because, as you guys know, the way you feel about yourself is going to affect what actions you take in the world. It's going to affect how your life turns out. Because if you think you suck, if you think you're a dirty, rotten sinner, or you can't afford it, or it's not possible for you, or that's not going to work, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to manifest that because of your beliefs. So that's why I maintain. And if you've seen any of my live videos on Instagram recently this week, I spoke a lot about that because I had a video. It didn't go viral, but we had like 1,000 comments or something on it because I was like, voting blue isn't going to fix anything. If you hate Trump, voting blue is not going to fix it because it's still the same control system based on our dependence of them on them. So I spoke a lot about how, like, what we do in here, focusing on the individual, because imagine if we all sought to cultivate inner peace in ourselves. That is how peace in the world is created when all the individuals choose it for themselves. It's all about our choices. And they've convinced us that it's about choosing who's in office, and it's not. So, yeah, I won't go on and on about that because I've got, lots of videos. Um, let's see, I'm paying attention to the chat too. If you're open to sharing how much and what form did you take on your journey a few weeks ago? Oh, yeah, I will answer that question. We got plenty of time today. So we'll jump into our scheduled programming here in just a few minutes, but I will answer that. It was 2.3 grams. It was ground up, and I just mixed it with some mushrooms, fresh mango, and coconut water, and chugged it like 8 ounces. But I don't know. I actually met I the source was through the director of the film that I'm doing, Mental Hell, which I've been working a lot on. And you guys get the inside scoop on that. We've been interviewing people for casting. It's really hard to decide, because there's a lot of decisions that have to go into who's going to be in this film and the balance of it all, the everything. So there's a lot, but I definitely felt like I was in my own way in terms of speaking and sharing and being as authentic as possible with myself and with others. And one of the biggest revelations I had from the journey was I was throttling my own feed, so to speak. I was the one holding back. I was like, what is holding me back? And to discover it was me. I was also like going into it, I was like afraid of feeling the shame of like figuring out like what I was doing, but there was no shame, right? Because shame is a mechanism of the ego. And so in that space, after the journey, I was just awake to it. I was like, oh, it's just been me the whole time because that's easy. It's an easy fix to be like, okay, I'm going to stop being silent because, and the revelation is this, being silent can also be, and in my case was, people pleasing. Not saying the things, not being who I was in front of other people because I was afraid of what other people would think about me, because I was afraid of how I'd be perceived or if I was going to be misunderstood. But all of that is just egoic programming that I had like lumped onto myself, being afraid of being annoying. I connected that back to growing up and having my fraternal twin sister. I love her to death, but she was always telling me, "You're so annoying, Kate. Shut up. Nobody cares." And to this day, she ignores me largely. Like I never hear from her. I have to reach out to her. She never asks about my life. And so internalizing that from your family, maybe you guys have been in similar situations or are in situations right now where it's like that, where you're not getting validated by the people closest to you. And so you kind of start telling your story, yourself a story, and acting as if the things that you've internalized are true. So I had somehow internalized that I was annoying, nobody cared what I had to say, and that I should just be quiet. And that is people pleasing. And life just gets so much better when you're unapologetically yourself. And we are all love, right? So we don't have to be afraid of saying the wrong thing because if our intention is pure and coming from a place of love and sharing our story, and if you don't share your story, who is that not loving? First and foremost, it's not loving yourself. If you're shutting yourself up, trying to please other people, you're being unloving to yourself. And that was an intention in my journey as well, was to cultivate and reconnect with myself in a way that I had somehow forgotten. And the effects linger. It's not an addictive thing. I told the facilitator, Kristen, I was like, I don't think I ever want to do that again because I got so much out of it the first time. Not that I never will, but it's certainly not like a psychologically addictive thing of like, I got to do that again because it does like wreck you in the best way. It makes you forget and not even care who you actually are. Like it took me a while to remember my name, not literally, but it just didn't matter. It didn't matter. I literally sat on my toilet here in my van in front of the facilitator that I had just met. We're both women. I was like, why am I hiding myself from you? Why would I ever want to do that? And just reconnecting to that realness, that authentic core, and knowing that the work I'm doing in the world trying to help free people is exactly what Jesus was doing, and he was showing us the way. And yeah, that's exactly what Rob is doing. And that's why I asked him to come on this podcast, because I see what he's doing. I see that he's wanting to share his story and that has a purpose. So I guess without further ado, I want to welcome Rob in the hot seat on the Conscious Rebels podcast here at
Yeah.
Conscious Rebels Network live. He's it's really exciting to have you on in the hot seat today, Rob, because I know you've got an extensive background in awakening, as many of us do, and so the more that we can hear from you about how you've navigated through that, I think there's people in this room, people who might be listening to the recording later on who couldn't make it today, that are going to get something out of it. So yeah, welcome, Rob. Thank you for
Well,
being here
thanks.
today.
Thanks for letting me be here. Can you hear me fine?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, my situation with the family is very similar to what you were just saying. They don't listen to me. They can't get a conversation. I got to go to them. And it's always been that way because I've always said things outside the box. Didn't do the basic stuff. I got to talk to people directly, one on one, and get deep into the conversation, you know.
Yeah.
But you're talking about psychedelics. Ever do a sweat lodge?
No, and I don't want to.
You don't need psychedelics for that. Get the same
Yeah,
results.
you get naturally delusional just from like having your temperature be too high. I I think we can all listen to our intuition if you're feeling called to doing that experience, and there's a reason for that. But if you're not, I wouldn't go there if you're not feeling pulled to it. And I didn't feel pulled towards mushrooms until like the opportunity presented itself. It wasn't a drug seeking experience. It was just like, oh, the director that I've chosen for my film, who's the perfect fit because he's got the background in deconstruction and the background in psychiatric medication that I do too, and knowing that neither of those things is a solution to mental health issues, in 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 its entirety anyway. And it just so happens he's like a very experienced psychonaut, and he's plugged into the Denver psychedelics community or association, and at no point did he offer me anything. It was always me. It was me who was like, "Hey, should we make a movie?" Because he contacted me on Instagram and made that connection authentically, just to say, "Hey, I was on benzos for 16 years. I really identify with what you're saying. I was in a toxic relationship that was like supposedly Christian. My wife was abusive, covert narcissism type thing, which I know a lot of us have been through that in in some way, shape, or form as well." And so we're kind of all just finding each other, and the that's when the doors open. So that's when the doors open. At some point the door opened for Rob to be part of this community. And I'm curious, when you say, Rob, that um the things that you would say to the people around you, what specifically were you saying that they were just like not getting?
Well, now what's going on with the pandemic? None of them would listen to that story, that's for sure. But see, when I was a kid, I would be able to see my grandfather that passed away when I was 5 years old. So
Wow.
I did some major spiritual awakening about 23 years ago to a point where like it was like my soul was trying to come out and learn every possible angle of learning, healing, energy work, meditation, to where some would say I'm a psychic, but really it's more highly intuitive. I mean, I don't need psychedelics because every single night I ask to travel. And I've seen things in the lower realms that the movies don't even recommend, it's so crazy down there. But I had to learn who I was. I went into um, past life regressions. And this is kind of where the awakening was the soul was trying to get out and learn all these things to turn around and look to tell you this is who you are. So I was in a group in Illinois. Well, first a group in Chesterton where we did meditation, guided meditation, where we learn who our guardian angels are, guides, whoever, could be a family member. I say guardian angels because there's, that's what people go to, but it could be just about anyone. So my grandfather that passed at 5 was always around. Interesting story. My grandfather talked to my brother in the other room, and he's like, he passed when we were 5, or I was 5, he was 3. And I would see him walk around the house, sit at the stairwell where I was, sleeping in the living room or the bedroom. And so that kind of opened more doors. And then, like one time, my grandmother was saying, "Oh, yeah, he's still around." And all of a sudden, the lights start flickering, going off and on. So it was like just the start of what I was really getting into. So I did past life regressions. I learned guardian angels were coming around, and I got to a point where I can hear energy, their sound, like a high piercing, like a light going off. You can tell the difference between an angel, regular being. You'd be surprised how many souls are actually lost and they don't just go to heaven just like that. So I was in a group in Naperville, Illinois for 5 years where we learned that and helped spirits pass away, pass over. And it's all about a different special thought. You know, they are people or spirits and ourselves are trapped in a loop, conscious loop. You know, we're programmed like the Catholics, like you're saying, and going to hell and all this. That's embedded in our subconscious. So it happens to them after they pass as well. So an example, when I was in, so I'm in Indiana now. I live I'm from this area. I was in Arizona for 9 years, meeting more soul contract groups like that. And I was studying near-death experiences. And we had a group every week would come in and or every month and one guy came in that was an atheist. And he told us, well, a month ago I passed away. I didn't believe anything about God or any of this. Immediately, I'm in this dark place, fire going. I sure felt like I was in hell. Then instantly, I was up with God, talking to him. Beautiful, you know, he just went on and on. And God gave him a choice. You could be down there, you could be here. This is your free choice. He goes, no, I want to be with my wife and I was taking care of my mother. Boom, he woke up in the hospital, just like that. And now he at the time was telling everybody about it. So this is kind of, we were talking about New Age. This is far beyond New Age stuff. New Age is this people thinking they're happy and joy and stay in a high frequency. This is more ancient souls that's come here, which all of us probably are because we're awake, because it's about our soul level consciousness evolving all these lifetimes.
Yeah.
So all the
Yeah.
ones we don't, we see that aren't awake, their soul's just not that evolved yet.
Yeah, I don't know if you feel this way, Rob, or if you guys see some maybe some nods or some yeses in the chat. But if you guys have this feeling of I'm here to do a job, I signed up for this. I think there's some people there's a subreddit I follow. It's called Escaping Prison Planet, and it's full of people who think that they're imprisoned on Earth, that they were sent here to be in prison. They didn't choose to come here. There's antinatalist forums that are like, I would never have kids because I didn't choose to be here. And it's like, I don't identify with that at all. The first time I ever heard about, I don't know if you guys have heard of Dolores Cannon and the different types of quantum regression. Yeah, Rob, you were talking about past life regression. Like, I don't remember a lot. I don't think I have had any past lives on Earth, but I identify with the idea of having had past lives elsewhere, and that somehow there's some call through the universe for people to incarnate on Earth at this time for a specific purpose to help wake up the masses and to be like a way shower. And I get that vibe from so many of you guys in here that we all did. We all volunteered because the me I know I am, that inner child, that purity that we're all born with before all the ego stuff and layers come on to try to stop us, because it's a very dense existence that we're in, and the ego can be really strong and the programming is so thick that in this society especially, that you forget you forget everything, you forget your purpose. But the first time I ever heard about the waves of volunteers, that people have volunteered to come here during this awakening process, not just of the people on the planet, the collective consciousness, but the earth itself, I was like, yeah, that totally sounds like me. I totally would have volunteered to say, yep, I'll do that. Like, I know I'm going to be okay, right? And even going into the psychedelic journey, I was like, I'm setting aside this time. I can trust myself. I'm safe. Kristen, the facilitator, is here. This is not like a deadly substance. I can't like kill myself doing this. I feel led, gently guided toward this and not forced into it. It's all voluntary. And that's, how you guys hear something that's true and you're like, yes, amen. Like, it resonates. The truth resonates. And how impossibly beautiful it is that we have the ability to speak to each other, that we can develop language, that we can go through the experiences that we go through. And even in the moment, if we think we're victims of it, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, boo hoo. And a lot of people choose to live there. But I think the people in this room have chosen not to be victims. And that's our choice. We get to choose to not live there. Um, but we grow through what we go through. We went through what we went through on purpose so we could help guide other people through it as well. I know that for a fact. Like, it was really shitty, the stuff I went through in the mental hospital 4 times. I wouldn't know what I know now without that insider privilege that I had to experience it, to be able to learn the language that I needed to be able to explain it to people and help people through it. So it sounds like, Rob, you've been through a lot of that yourself, where you've gone through some stuff with your family and you've learned how to talk about it with people that in only the people that are meant to hear your message will hear it. It's like, so when you're talking to your family, maybe they're not your soul family. Maybe they don't have a contract with you to, or they do in some way to be that opposition, to spurn that growth, because we don't grow unless we are uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. And so being in these families or being in these communities that maybe feel make us feel stifled can be seen, and is likely is there for a purpose in order to push us onto the path of growth that we signed up for. How does that resonate with you, Rob? Do you feel in your experiences with past life regression, astro traveling, or whatever, that you volunteered to come here?
I think I volunteered to come here many, many times, like hundreds of times, thousands probably, because I've been to so many different people, and I got to play with people and say, okay, you have no idea who I am. Like, I'm moving on, the psychic medium stuff. And I got my core that knew exactly who I was. And so you get, the more you do it, the more you learn about yourself. So I learned about past lives. I was a priest in Egypt. I I,
Wow.
I went into the Iron Age and became very dark and evil. So I didn't get punished because I'm still here, right? Um, but it's like we keep coming back to learn something else from the other person. So that contract is continuous, as we grow and grow our soul to know who our true self really is.
Yeah.
So, like, one of my experiences when I first started learning about the chakra system was I at the beginning trying to figure all this out, and I was in a cubicle at work, headphones on, doing the chakra clearing. That evening, I went to lay down and sleep. As I closed my eyes, the back legs started bouncing off the ground. And I'm like freaking out, what the heck's going on? So I just get this feeling to walk in the living room. It was like a Christmas tree of orbs. Souls of all colors were there. I just opened the door by clearing all my chakras, and that was what the bed was doing, was my energy was leaving me. So the layer part, everything is about layering, and that energy keeps clinging to us. The more we clear ourselves, the more we drown outside and that kind of thing, the more clear our mind is and know who we truly are.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much that we have identified as us, and that's a big piece of the transform program. We're doing a lot of it in transform your money too, where what is it that is operating in the background that we believe is fact about life? Like, I'm never going to make more than X amount of dollars, or that's not available to me, or that's not possible for me. We don't even consider doing it because there's already that belief that it's not possible, or that's not who we are. But if there was ever a time where I thought, like, nobody wants to hear what I have to say, 5-year-old me with my McDonald's Happy Meal toy microphone walking down the beach interviewing random people with total confidence
Mm.
would have disagreed. That is not who I am. Is somebody to just be quiet and to wait to be spoken to. And I think so much of childhood as well, we are taught by our parents that this is the way things are, and if we don't see them living their best life, we don't think that's generally a thing that people do. Like, oh, well, when you were a kid, you thought anything was possible and you couldn't wait to get older because you could do whatever you wanted. That is true. It is absolutely true. When you get older and you've learned the ways of safety and keeping yourself safe, and you learn kind of the nature of reality and what this whole place is about, you can do whatever you want. But so many of us are believe what we're taught by our parents, teachers, pastors, other kids about what's possible, that we think that's who we are by the time we get to an an older age, decades later sometimes. But it's never too late to start unraveling that. And not not all of us are, I shouldn't say not all of us are lucky, because I think we all are blessed with a certain task or a certain mission to be here. Uh, but I think it's also important that we find each other and lean on each other, because there is strength in numbers. There's We feel less alone when we're like together and hearing stories from each other. It's like, oh, I'm not crazy, you know? And hearing your experiences with like seeing these orbs is resonating with stories I've heard from others too. So I'm like, man, this is really cool. And we all respond to something different that's going to help remind us who we are. And in your case, it sounds like discovering and balancing your chakras. And hey, the bed being a filter system, that's awesome. Like, just get it out, like, make it work for you, and then it frees you into, you feel a whole lot lighter. And relating it back to the psychedelic journey that I experienced, like, I've had a lot of body image issues for my whole life. I've gained 30 pounds since I started healing, and I, for a long time, judged myself for that, and I know that others in this room have probably done the same thing because of all the programming. All the programming about you're supposed to look a certain way, you're supposed to be this, like, whatever, you're supposed to, the number means something, and in that journey, even that melted away, and I was just like a girl in a van making choices, hanging out, being in like the actual reality, not the I gotta be here at this time, I gotta be here at that time, like all this stuff that pulls your attention completely pulls you away from the fact that we're just here on this beautiful planet that has so much available. Anything is possible. All the resources are here. We've just been told that they're not, or that we have to buy them, or that they're off limits to us for some other reason, none of which is true. So, whichever way you find your way back to that place of it's all here now, and if not later, it's like, it's the anxiety we project into the future, right? That keeps us out of the present. That's why so many people have so much anxiety, because it's pulling us into the future in a place that does not exist. We're not in reality when we're anxious because we're thinking about the future. And we're also not in reality, and we can't possibly be happy if we're in someplace other than right now. So if we're depressed and ashamed about the past, which is where I spent 2.5 years, of course I was in the future at the same time, anxious and depressed, but you can't be happy unless you're in the present now, realizing like, look around us, we've got everything we need. Most of us probably have water nearby, we're not going to die of thirst, we probably have food in the fridge, we have everything we need, and every moment of our lives we're always being divinely guided and protected. So I want to hear a story, like a challenge story from your life, Rob, like where you were facing that programming from the ego, where maybe you were afraid, and how you overcame that fear to step back into the truth of who you actually are. Like some time where you were maybe fooled by the false ego, like the false self.
Well, I don't know if this would be that, but I wrote the book Our Children Come First,
Mm,
and that is about going through divorce. And it was in court 10 times, and I raised my daughter since she was 5 months old,
wow.
and dealing with court systems, dealing with a psychotic bio. My ex was, what's it called, bipolar. She just was very violent, unstable. So I had to deal with court systems and protecting my daughter and raising her at the same time. So, as my ego at the time, I played basketball for high school. I was famous, kind of. I could have played big college if I didn't get politics screwed me there. But it's my ego had to stop and get back into who I was, get the female intuition to take care of my daughter, and then deal with the court system that time. For 10 times, it's a lot. And I got full custody after she was 8 months old. So it was more dealing with protecting her and trying to overcome my anger at the same time. So and being in sports, I was always so hard on myself. Even now, when what I'm doing, trying to get business going, I get hard on myself on why did you get this done right? What, why I asked you if you need a bullet list. So everything's perfect.
It's better when it's not perfect, right? Because perfect is just a human construct. It's an expectation. It's a layer of programming. And you mentioned basketball, and the competitiveness that comes with that is also a layer of programming. How many people are us versus them? And that was a big part of some of my lives this week, where people were being really mean to me in the comments about not voting blue, or not like throwing away my vote by choosing not to engage in the system. I don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils, because then I'm still voting for evil. And it pits us against each other. That competition layer is not of the highest stuff. It's not of source. Love is not competing against each other. It's not, but there's so much of that in our world that it becomes kind of part of our psyche. Like, there is a competition. You have to win at all costs, and that is a fighter energy. So when I think about you going through the court system, and you have to keep your calm through that, but you were up against so much of that, the matrix. There's so many matrices that have been laid on top of this perfect planet and told that this is the way it is, and if you want to keep your kids safe, you got to go to court 10 times. Or if your wife was experiencing those bipolar symptoms, she's probably being told that she's needs to be on medication and isn't really getting to the root cause of her issues, like, which is a lot of it is consciousness and awareness of like what's in your body that's preventing it, what's in your brain that's preventing it from functioning properly. Myself, I was diagnosed with bipolar 6 different times. All three of the types that are recognized right now, which is like the unrecognized, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, all had to do with heavy metal toxicity in the brain and the body. And if you address those root causes, but if we don't have that information, if somebody is experiencing those symptoms and they are simply not aware, then all hell can break loose. And if the other people operating in the systems that we're up against, like the legal system as you experience, they don't have that awareness either. It's just a bunch of people surrounding us all telling us this is the way it is. This is the way it is. Think about it. We go to school and we have teachers telling us this is how it is. We got people on TV in positions of authority telling us this is how it is. And if you know nothing else, especially not to go within, especially if you're ever in religion, that going within, you might encounter demons because you are of the devil unless you give your life to Jesus, or whatever the rhetoric is. All of it is designed to separate us from ourselves. All of it is designed to put our attention outside of us and not do what it actually takes to change our lives and to make the world better. If we all looked inward and started creating peace, if we all remembered who we actually are, and that we're all part of a collective that is inextricably connected to one another, it is by doing the good work on ourselves that we are affecting the people around us. It's like a fabric. We're all just like a thread in a piece of fabric, and every thread affects the other thread. If you pull one thread out, then it's going to affect the ones next to it. So if you are cultivating inner peace for yourself, it's not selfish, but that's what we're taught, isn't it? Like, to pay attention to yourself, especially people who are really steeped in that. If you guys have watch the videos about the energy zones, the caregiver energy, where we're martyrs, we're pulled into giving and giving and giving, and we don't give to ourselves. We kind of forget about the self-care energy because we've been taught, oh, that's selfish. That's not gonna make the world a better place. But doesn't it make us better equipped to take care of others when we take care of ourselves, right? So I'm curious, Rob, in your journey of especially with you getting custody of your daughter, what was it like taking care of yourself at that point? How did you stay calm and grounded? Even in the moments that you weren't calm and grounded, what was that like for you? And now looking back on that, how do you relate to that? How do you view that?
Well, during the time, it was very hard to keep my control of my anger and control of everything going on. But like before court, every court date, I would go to the beach area and actually start having a conversation with God, which brings me to all this and why I'm doing this is, like you say, going in, you start hearing the true source and not all the other things going on around you. But as far as like my ex, I would see entities move in and out of her head and fly through her. So you, I'm to the point where I can see energies of, I'm like a cat. And So it's like you got to clear all this different energies off of you to get to the point of who you truly are. And it takes a lot to work to do that, in intention wise. I mean, I've been doing this for just to my with myself for 20 some years. So going into the where I had my heart attack 6 years ago, I knew I was okay, even though I was having this issue, because 3 months prior to it, I was with a practitioner I was working with. She was doing reflexology on my feet, and I passed out for a second and saw myself in the future in my 80s.
Wow.
And it was a joke then. And then I was like, while I was in the hospital, I'm like, well, I'm going to take that travel there. I know I'm okay. Just ask God to make sure my contract continues here. Instead of praying for healing, just change my contract to move forward into that timeline. That's how I look at things anyway. So yeah, there's just so much more to what's going on. And when I had my heart attack, this goes into the energy work and how we can change how we are. Like Dr. Wayne Dyer, I don't know if you heard of him.
Oh
Years
yeah.
ago, he had mentioned in a grocery store, a guy and girl were fighting, and he just walked up and stood next to him, didn't say a word, and he knew his energy would calm him down. So we don't have to speak when we're in a group
That's right.
or in situations. If you want to go into
That's right.
court, I was total peaceful in my court system. They had to turn the air conditioning off because they couldn't hear me because I was so calm. I didn't show any emotion. They couldn't judge me in any way. But learning that energy part of it, back to my heart attack area. So I was in the hospital, had all this pain going on my lower back. They did all these tests. They sent me home in the morning. Man, they didn't know what it was. By 1 o'clock that Sunday, it was July. I'm heading back with so much pain, my whole body, my left arm, everything was in pain. And they took forever they still couldn't figure out all the tests, what was going on, until an enzyme in my blood test was spiking. So then they knew I had a blockage or something going on. But
Smart.
during that, so right after the surgery, they put a stent in one of my arteries going to the heart. So they gave me all the drugs. I'm going to the bathroom and blood's coming out. Of course, I'm on blood thinners now. It could be anything. So I go to my regular doctor, told him what just happened. This was 2 days later. He sets up appointment the next morning for gastroenterologist or whatever. And I told her the situation. She's like, I'm closing down all my clients today. Go to the hospital now. I'll meet you there. She was freaking out. I was like, really? No, you know. But in that moment, I called a friend that does all the spiritual energy work that was just told me about a doctor she works with, Dr. Phillips in Mesa, Arizona. He has his own energy practice healing. And she went to him and he used her body to connect with mine energetically. And by the time we got in the hospital, I had to wait hours before all that set up. They did a scope, came in, everything was gone, everything was cleared by then. So I
Wow.
so I started seeing him afterwards, weekly. And that's where the energy part of it and our consciousness and all our everything happening, he's taken me back 3, 5, 7 generations on my father's side, mother's side, and then any problems I was having health wise, he's like, this is on your mother's side. You can release it and you can learn how to reset my whole nervous system and neurons. And I was releasing family BS from that long ago.
Yeah.
So that's
It
how the
stays with
energy
you.
works. Yeah.
It stays with you. We're all connected to each other. And so to be told that we are separate in any way, shape, or form from all that is makes absolutely no sense, which is like a big tenet of my soapbox speeches on religion. As you guys know, it's like, how could a God or a creator, or supreme being, a source of all that is, create you and you be separate of that. It's like, are you in a trash can? Like, no. Look around this world that we live in, this Garden of Eden. I think the whole story of getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden is like a metaphor for us being psychologically fooled into thinking that we were separate when it was so obvious that we weren't, because we were still able to communicate and be with each other, which it's the whole thing. We're all one being. We're all one consciousness. And I absolutely know Wayne Dyer. One of my favorite quotes from him is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. My all-time favorite Wayne Dyer quote. I never got to see him in person before he passed away, but I was introduced to him by a friend, and just listening to like an audiobook of all of his work put together, or a lot of his work put together, has been really a helpful reminder. It's just crazy sometimes when you put on something because you're just in a bad mood and you're like, maybe Wayne Dyer can knock me out of it. And sure enough, like, you need to hear exactly what you heard, right? And that happens sometimes in videos that I post, where it could be the most random thing that I thought nobody wanted to hear. And I get one or two comments from people like, I needed to hear this exact thing. I don't know how I ended up on this video, but I needed to hear you say that I need to make myself better before I find the right person, right? And it's not until we start being the best version of ourselves that our life is going to actually get better. We can't just wait for stuff to get better before we start making ourselves better, because it's us who is doing the making it bad or making it good. And so I think in whatever way we arrive to that, whether it's through a heart attack or whatever way we arrive to that, none of that, like, there's no judgment there. We don't have to judge ourselves of like, and I used to judge myself all the time, like, how did I not know, how did I not understand that I was living a lie? I lived in a lot of shame for a long time because I wasn't living an authentic life. I was married to somebody I thought I had to stay married to because I told God I would never divorce him, or I told him that I would never leave him. It wasn't the right thing to do. You just, there's so many layers of self judgment that can keep us from starting the business that we want to start, from speaking our truth, from sharing with people. And it's obvious because you're here today, Rob, that you are over that hurdle, at least this level of hurdle, right? Because I'm gonna tell you, there's more levels to it. Of, yes, you start speaking your truth, but then like a louder voice comes in and tells you that you're annoying. That is just like, oh wait, nope, that's not true. Just because that person is perceiving me that way, that's their experience and their opinion, which they're entitled to have. You don't layer that on top of yourself. You don't absorb that. And so, and Rob, you mentioned that you're starting some kind of business. And as we kind of wrap up the podcast portion of this and move into our group discussion, I'm curious, because I know there's a lot of people in here or who are watching this who have expressed also wanting to start a business, or who have already started a business and are on that journey. So I imagine we're going to be talking about that in our discussion portion, exclusive to our Conscious Rebels group. But I want to hear what business it is that you're starting. And I think when you tell us about it, it'll be very obvious as to how you got to that point, because I think that's really exciting, hearing like what evolves out of these experiences we've had. So please.
You cut out for a second there, but so I'm going to be the Conscious Alchemist Coach.
Conscious Alchemist Coach. I love that. So tell us what that means. I love the sound of it. I can tell you what I think it means, but it's going to come better from you.
Well, alchemizing the dark energies, the dark thoughts, and it's all conscious and subconscious, and understanding where it comes from. And I'll be talking about and working on people's triggers, where the triggers come from, and not overreact, and just going more deeper into themselves. Bring in what, I don't know if you heard of heart math or heart coherence.
Yes.
Start hearing your heart talk to you, and not just you're up in your brain constantly going, da, 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 and start feeling the answer. And with all my experiences, I mean, I did shadow work, shamanic work, dark stuff that came from past lives. I mean, there was one story where I was being attacked by many dark energies coming at me. This was years ago. I mean, now I've realized that's my job, is to clear that. But my first guide even told me I had a legion of them coming at me. And I kept pushing them away. I kept pushing away. And then mentor in Illinois, she's like, stop pushing them away, bring them to you and see what they are, who they are, what. So I learned I had many past lives in wars, many war times. These were every single one that died with me, and I had took a portion of their pain and hold on to them for them. So they're just coming back asking for a return so they can move on.
Oh,
But it felt dark, it felt evil, but that's where they were at that time, whatever lifetime that was, and I was releasing that back to them.
yeah.
But there was hundreds of them.
So it wasn't scary at all. It was simply these people, these souls asking for what you basically trying to relieve you of some of the burden that you took on for them. It was that reciprocation. It seemed like what they wanted.
Yeah, and that's how, well, like you said, we're all one, and that's how we
Mhm.
connect,
Yeah.
continuous back and forth. So,
Yeah. And I love that the conscious alchemist concept that is people don't understand what alchemy is. I remember in history class and geography, whatever, they were teaching us that people in our history books who were trying to practice alchemy or trying to turn things like straw into gold type concept. But that's not what alchemy is. Actual alchemy is using the energy, which is our thoughts, feelings, experiences, um, the language that we have, literally using all the energy that we're surrounded with, and everything is energy. A dirty, rotten pair of shoes you find on the side of the road has a story behind it. Like, how did those shoes get there, right? So every piece of garbage that gets thrown into our side of the volleyball net or whatever. I'm thinking about a game called Clean Up Your Backyard that we played in elementary school. That competitiveness, like all of that can be transmuted, alchemized into something that either A serves you or serves others, which I feel is the same thing. If you're doing something that is improving your life, then that means everybody that you're connected to, everybody in this group, everybody in your family, whatever, is going to benefit from that healed, happier, more centered, grounded, alchemized version of you. So if people can start shifting out of that, and so that's what we're doing. We've shifted out of that consciousness of the ego, the consciousness of competition, the the consciousness of war, violent. And we got to take what we want. It's that's why I refuse to vote for the lesser two evils, because as long as they're still voting for war, as long as they're not trying to get their food, our water, and our air clean, I'm not interested in that system. I'd rather take it on myself and do what I can to keep the water, the food, and the air clean in my body, and to help others understand how they can do the same thing. That's going to make way more of a difference than my vote in a system that is keeping us all enslaved in the first place. So it's like, it's not like we're waking up from religion, but then we're like, oh no, now I got to go vote blue or vote independent or whatever. But like, I think the real journey is realizing that the whole thing is a system that was laid on top of this beautiful earth where everything is available to us, where everything is possible. And we got to shrink ourselves to fit in that system. We got to shrink ourselves to say yes to whoever's in office. We got to shrink ourselves to be like, yeah, I'm going to whittle down my entire power into a vote. There's so much more available to us than that. And I want to say thank you as we wrap up this portion of the programming today. This is our public facing interview aspect where it's you and me. We're having a conversation about your life, about what you're doing, your experiences, and alchemizing them together, which I think we've done. You certainly have done a beautiful job sharing that with us, and I'm so excited to move into the open floor discussion where the other conscious rebels that are in here alchemizing along with us can give us their insights, their questions, can give you their questions, and what popped up for them today when in hearing Rob share his experiences, the little corner of the world that you share with us. I know there's a lot more. There's only so much we can fit into 45 minutes.
yeah.
But I'm
Here's my
excited to.
list. I was going to go over.
Oh gosh, yeah. Isn't it funny? Like you can plan, but then the way it unfolds is something I don't that's why I don't plan anymore. That's why I was like, yeah, there's no bullet points. We're just gonna have a conversation and see where it goes, see what comes up for us, and see what needs to happen in this place, because when we're planning, we're in the future that doesn't exist yet. When we're present, it's like a whole different experience of what's coming up in this moment for the people that are here, what needs to be said. And so, yeah, with that, again, thank you, Rob, for being here. If there's any final words you want to leave with the audience that is listening publicly, please share that now. And then after that, if you guys want to start raising your hands or typing your questions or whatever, go ahead and do that.
Well, I'll just say we're ever always continuously changing, and there is much more to us. I mean, like our energy when we change just by being there, people around us, just know that our higher selves are doing different things in the spiritual realm
Yes.
that we would never know unless we, well, I know what I'm doing, but it's gets really deep where how much more evolve is going on in this earth.
Yeah. And we just have a simple job of being this version of ourselves. And it feels a little scary sometimes, and but then that scariness, when you realize it's coming probably from the ego being like, oh my gosh, like so many of us are afraid of success and what that might look like, and afraid of uh we say we're afraid of failure, but oftentimes we're afraid of our own greatness. We're afraid of how awesome things could actually be, and the reactions of those around us, how that might affect the way things are. And it's like, it's unfamiliar. Our ego wants us to stick with the familiar. Our ego wants us to do what it knows, because it knows that it'll be safe. It might not be happy, but it'll be safe. And it's like all it cares about. And so it focuses us on those things, which doesn't move us forward. But when we disconnect ourselves from this belief that it's got to look a certain way or it's got to happen a certain way, and we just focus on who we're being, and we're just, you know, we're an avatar called Rob. We're an avatar called Caitlin, Carolyn, Harry. Like, all of us are just avatars from our higher selves that are here to do a very simple job. And that's just to be our authentic selves, to be love, to be light to other people, to help them alchemize, which is exactly what Rob is working to do in this world and what he's helped us do today. And so I'm excited to pass the baton over to the other rebels in the room. And share your insights, share what popped up for you as you were hearing Rob speak today.